Hello, people. I'm just sitting here, jumping around, looking at different stories and whatever. The picture that you're looking at is starting to, in some countries, um, this is becoming real, where they're getting military involved in all of this COVID shit. Virus prevention measures turn violent in parts of Africa. I mean, yes, you can see the guys here wearing some kind of, well, they're not some kind of, but they're the paper shitty masks, which don't work. If you don't believe me, check that out. After a couple of minutes, they do not work. They don't stop squat. Measures imposed to prevent the spread of coronavirus have taken a violent turn in parts of Africa as countries impose lockdowns and curfews or seal off major cities. Minutes after South Africa's 3-week lockdown began, police screamed at homeless people in downtown Johannesburg and went after some with batons, with reports of rubber bullets fired. Police fired tear gas at a crowd of Kenyan ferry commuters as the country's first day of a curfew slid into chaos. In Rwanda, the first country in sub-Saharan Africa to impose a lockdown, police have denied that 2 civilians shot dead were killed for defying the new measures, saying the men attacked an officer after being stopped. Experts are concerned the continent will not be able to handle a surge in cases without the depth of medical facilities available in more developed economies. The thing is this is not only happening in Africa. I was talking about India, and I'm telling people, watch India. Over 1 billion people, how are they supposed to separate? You know, people have been left with no transport, they've lost their jobs. Those same people now are trying to walk home back to their villages because there is no transport. They're trying to go home to their parents because they have no work, no transport, okay? And if they're being hammered on the way home by the police or by the military, this to me does not seem like something that you would do when there is supposedly this pandemic going on. I mean, surely you would leave buses, you would put out immediate thing saying, buses are only going to be running for the next 5 days so that people could get back to where they need to get to. Or you would allow people time to purchase, food and stuff like that. But yeah, it doesn't seem to be happening in some countries. Some places, like I said in India, I showed you guys the last time I did a video, where one of the government officials or whatever it was going to put out a shoot to kill. If anybody doesn't follow, a shoot to kill, for fuck's sake. This is a virus. A virus. But we have to worry more now about the military, about the police, than we do the virus. You won't die of COVID, but you will die getting shot. Like, what the fuck? But anyway, what I wanted to show you guys was this. Okay, this came out, as you can see, 1 hour ago. I'll only get tested when I'm dying. Fit and healthy ex-soldier 33 says she was turned away from a coronavirus testing centre, and testing centre and a hospital despite suffering severe symptoms. Are you listening, people? Are you listening? An ex-soldier claims she has been left to suffer in her own home after being refused testing for coronavirus because she didn't meet the requirements. Kelly Nelson, 33, self-isolating at her Williamstown home in Melbourne after claiming to have been rejected from the Sunshine Bay COVID-19 clinic on Saturday afternoon. Ms. Nelson said the clinic staff told her they were unable to test her because they didn't have enough kits. They're only testing people who have been overseas in the past 2 weeks. There's no point in going back. The only point I would be able to go back and get tested for coronavirus was if I was going to die, she said. I'm still out of breath. I'm still throwing up. I still have a severe headache. The thing about this is, what happens if I get worse overnight? What are they going to do? Can I go back to the hospital? No, because they're not going to test me for coronavirus. They didn't give me any antibiotics. They didn't give me anything. I'm just in the same position as I was had I not left the house. Ms. Nelson attended the clinic around 1:30 p.m. on Saturday, March 28, about 48 hours after she started experiencing symptoms associated with COVID-19. The young woman, who spent 16 years in the military, said she started to suffer from a mild sore throat about 2 days ago. She put it out of her mind until she woke in the middle of Friday night, struggling to breathe with uncontrollable bowel movements and vomiting. After a sleepless night, she got up the next day with severe headache, shortness of breath, so bad speaking was difficult. I don't like to be dramatic and I don't want to obviously go to a hospital, but I was feeling that sick that I needed to go. She called the COVID-19 hotline, was advised to go to Sunshine Hospital for testing, but upon arrival, after a quick quiz by the nurses, she was told she didn't qualify for testing. The reason: she hadn't been overseas in the past 2 weeks. Ms. Nelson said the staff told her in confidence they were unable to test her because they had inadequate supplies. I pulled one of the male nurses aside and said, I've got all symptoms of this COVID virus. He said, just between you and me, they won't test you because they don't have enough test kits to test everyone. Self-described a fit and healthy individual went to the emergency department after being refused testing when she encountered another woman in a similar situation. She was in tears, she was quite distressed, she was talking to her husband on the phone saying how sick she was, got turned away from the same testing unit. She actually had a big fight with a lady and said, I am so sick, you're going to regret turning me away. 33-year-old said, it's outrageous the government is continuing to limit testing to Australians who have returned from overseas in the past few weeks. It's not about the people who are coming back from overseas anymore. If you look at the numbers, which are now sitting at 3,600, up about 257 per day, that's not people coming back from overseas. This is community spread. Well, you guys know my thoughts on all of this, but anyway, there's your little mappy thing, you know, that sticks out like a dunny in a desert so you can freak out some more. So they need to start testing people within the community, not just people that are coming back overseas. Maybe there is a shortage of tests, or maybe the government just doesn't want to see how big the numbers are going to blow out once they start releasing the numbers of testing the community. Federal government announced it was expanding its testing measures to include several new categories of people after a national cabinet meeting on Wednesday night. Tests were previously limited to people who showed flu-like symptoms and those who had recently returned from overseas or come into contact with somebody with COVID-19. But new groups are now eligible for testing, including healthcare workers, aged care workers, and people in hotspots, providing they are suffering from fever or extreme respiratory symptoms. Well, like I says to you, people, just wait until people start coming out, just like this chick. You know, she tried to do the right thing. But sadly, even the right thing here, for some odd reason, just doesn't seem to be fucking working. Like, why? I mean, on one side, they're telling you, don't mix, don't whatever. It means what? If you get sick, stay home. Who gives a fuck? You know, if you make it, you make it. If you don't, you don't. That's if you believe in this virus. Oh, you need to be tested. You need to follow this. We're going to shut down the borders. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. But they're not testing people. I told you guys before that my daughter's doctor, took swabs. He was doing the right thing. And when he tried to get The swab's picked up. Oh yeah, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that anymore. So it's not about people not doing the right thing. It's not about people following these stupid ass rules that are coming out continuously, daily. You know, it's not about that. They're obviously there's a whole other friggin' agenda here. If you've got a pandemic and they're saying that the symptoms usually stay hidden for X amount of days or whatever, like that, you know, it's not about people coming back from overseas. I mean, how many people would have come back from overseas when this first started, before the supposed lockdowns and the self-isolations, or that you've got a mandatory isolation or whatever? How many of those people had already touched people, had already mixed with people, had already gone to the shopping centre, had already done this, that, and the other? All of those people then are supposedly then carriers. All I can say is that if this was such a pandemic, people, more than half the world would have it by now. More than half the world. But they can't instill rules on people every day, continuously. They've killed businesses. They've made millions of people, well, if you look at, depending on what scale you're looking, whether it's global, whether it's, you know, your own city or whatever. How many people have they put out of work, now dependent on welfare? And ask yourself, for what? Because what I just showed you now, what I just read to you, the chick was sick. Sick. But they turn her away. They tell her, go home. Go home. You know, go home. And look, just between you and me, they won't test you because they don't have enough test kits to test everyone. She was there. It's not like she was defying all these rules that the government comes out with. No, she was there. Sick. Obviously by her symptoms, she was sick. And if you start asking around, I'll bet you anything that you're going to come across other people that have experienced the same thing. So what is going on here? The militaries are quick to come out onto the streets. Military is quick to beat the fuck out of you if you're going to go buy fruit and veg, depending on what country you live in, of course. To me, this doesn't sound like a pandemic, people. It hasn't from day one, and it still doesn't. I mean, just stop for a minute and think. How many people, like if this was a pandemic, they would have hired people to be standing at doors of shopping centres and stuff like that, literally wiping everything down continuously 24/7. That is not happening. It's not happening. There's something else going on here. My advice to everybody is, forget chasing toilet paper. Open your fucking eyes up and be ready for whatever is coming, because it ain't the fucking COVID virus, I can tell you that now.